That's all one needs to do.
Yeah.
That's all one needs to do.
It's really, yeah. That's it.
We got our guy Tony Slater coming on shortly.
Yeah, annual trip last 2 years. I know that'll be. I mean, my kid's coming in 4 months, so yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do one next year.
We'll see. Yeah, what we did. So like we plan our annual guys trip around the fantasy football draft. So it's always like end of August. But one of our guy friends, like maybe like the OG room, like group creator,
right?
He's due to have a child at the beginning of July. So there's just no chance it's going to happen. So we're like, what if we just do the trip? Well, because like we always like play golf and do a bunch of stuff to decide draft order, just like truly screw around that way. And yeah, the whole idea was like, let's get together, do that, and then we'll just draft remote. So we still get the guys' trip, still have the fun. Just we don't have the in-person draft.
That's honestly that's. I mean, better off that way. As long as you get the trip in, that's the most important part. Wait, where'd you go again?
I was just up in the Sac area. Nothing special.
Like, the thing is, like, I agree with that one. It's like we pick Tahoe every year because it's like there's no point. Like, you don't want people to go fly to Hawaii, right, or New York. It's just like then people are like, it's kind of far. I gotta take days off, shit like that. By the way, Steph looks so. I don't remember these highlights at all. I don't really watch old highlights. Look how quick he is, though. Look at this.
You know, I do sometimes, but yeah, I don't do it often enough that every time I'm like, forgot.
He looks hella skinny, but man, he looks so different.
Yeah, not post-pandemic Jack Steph.
No, now he's enormous.
Now he can't even touch his arms together.
Yeah, I mean, can't make threes anymore either. Gets gassed out after 30 minutes.
But he can beat up. But he can beat up Pat Beverly now. That's all that matters, right?
Look at that.
All right. We'll get into the pod in a few minutes. Our guy, Anthony Slater, was going to be joining us in a few minutes. But until then, you know, we're just getting everything in order. We got 2 reads to get to today. Is that right?
Yeah. We'll go. I know I texted you, but we'll go Slates first, right? Get him on for.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Put on the Giants game in the background here.
Yeah. Well, do that. Give me 1 second here.
It's a great crowd.
I think we got the quest coming in real quick. We'll see. Hey, Will, what's up, man? It's been a minute.
Crazy this was 10 years ago.
Right?
I mean, 10 years ago, dude. Blows my mind.
Still holds up. The play still holds up.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. I say, you want to get started, and when he gets here,
Yeah.
Have some fun with it. Let's do it.
Yep. Oh, looks like he told us. He said he's good. Okay, cool. So he's in here somewhere.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop this. I'll get started. We get going.
Ooh, what did I do? I clicked the wrong button. Hold on.
Nah, I turned that off. You can do anything.
Oh, okay.
No,
I clicked the wrong button, but I'm good now. That was on me.
Cool. We'll get us going. Let me get Slater. I'm about to invite you up here.
No cap fucking kills every time, dude. Projects on your first of all. Bro, can you read it verbatim, Sam? No cap's comment. God damn.
1 second. The man's a loyal listener. He knows the ad read. He knows it well. Guys, we get up and running. We'll get Slater up here in a second. All right. Presented by Prize Picks. $100 match on your first deposit. Use the promo code LightYears. Andy Lou, free agency is upon us.
Let's go.
It is time. And we got to bring in the big hitters, have some fun with it as we're going. But do you feel rejuvenated? We're finally beyond watching the playoffs, and maybe the Warriors can do something to make everything better.
Are you, dude? Look at this shit-eating grin on my face. For those that are listening right now, that'll be watching on YouTube after. I'm so excited. I'm ready. This is Paul George week. This is. I had no idea that rumor was gonna come out. I can live off that rumor for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Sam, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm ready. Give me something. Give me anything. I'm ready. I'm locked in.
Let's do it. Yeah. And so, we had to get our special guest up here. Let's get him.
Don't bring me down. Don't bring me down, Slater. I need something to hold on to. These Warriors. They did give me something, especially after and listen to Mike Dunleavy bore us to death. I'm ready to get locked in.
Let's make sure he's good.
All right. I believe I'm on.
You are. There we go. Got through the technical difficulties. Slater, how you doing?
Y'all talking about the boring press conference, which I had to drive like 90 minutes there and back today. So
it's got to be more than 90 minutes. That's got to be like 2.5.
Not 2.5. Although sometimes on the way it can be. I mean, y'all know traffic, but
yeah,
2-ish. I was
trying to not be too dramatic. Yeah. And it ended at rush hour. Yeah, there's just no way around it for you.
Rush hour wasn't bad today. I don't know if it's a Monday thing or what.
Everyone's on vacation. Kids are
maybe not. Oh, what did you think of that press conference, Slater? I thought it was.
It was bland, purposefully fine. I mean, good GMing work 2 days before like the biggest transaction season. Biggest part of transaction season kind of kicks off. Like, I know fans probably want a deeper inside look, but it would not be wise for him to go up and be like being really in depth about the Klay situation, demanding, oh, we need to trade this, and this. Oh, the young guys, they're on the table. Like, I'm not sure he should have done that.
Do you know how I know it was bland? You tweeted one time. You tweeted one video of that.
It's almost like an acknowledgement. Like, I was here. Okay. Yep. I did my job.
Yep. I was there. Showed up.
Who has a better poker face, Dunleavy or Bob Myers? Because I'm pretty impressed by Dunleavy so far.
I think Dunleavy, Bob. I mean, you strike a chord with Bob at times, and it starts to spill a little bit. But they're similar in their own ways. I mean, obviously a little different, but I don't know. I think Dunleavy's getting comfortable in the job and probably more comfortable like saying nothing in a press conference setting.
So you didn't want to press him on how, the Warriors are going to get Paul George, apparently? That's the hot rumor right now? No?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was like, you kind of have to make a trade to significantly improve this roster. And I mean, I think that answer particularly was the one thing I tweeted about, as you mentioned. It was like setting the expectations like, hey, like there's a chance nothing goes down, and do not pitchfork to the facility if absolutely nothing goes down, even though he is trying. They are trying.
Thank God. That's why I'm so happy. I'm smiling from ear to ear. I mean, if they do nothing, I'll go back to being angry, as I've been all year. But hey, at least we know, or at least it seems like we know, because there's like a million rumors going out that at least they're trying to get rid of. I think the people that they probably need to make stuff happen, right? Like the Chris Paul contract and stuff like that.
I think the Klay Thompson situation is like a strong indicator of like their appetite for activity right now, because they're basically I don't want to say ruining their relationship with Klay, but they're like putting it in jeopardy by completely putting him on the back burner, because they're like really like they have to deal with that later in a very cold-hearted way to explore all the things they need to explore in this moment. And like if it was we should run it back, we need to like make sure Klay's good, then you would settle that. And they're not settling that because they're trying to figure out what else is out there.
You're saying from like a cap perspective, they can't explore all options with the Chris Paul contract if they've already committed to give Klay a certain amount of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, if it was like Klay, your priority one, Klay, we're going to figure it out, like, and you commit to something, you're like, taking a lot of other things potentially off the table. There's moves that if they're executed, would very likely end the Klay Thompson era, right? I mean, like, especially bigger money, big pieces, puzzles, like, everything impacts something else. And that's partly why Klay Thompson can sit there and be like, so if you get something done that you want to get done, that means I'm probably done here. Well, maybe let me take my situation into my own hands here.
Which is interesting because it's funny because the first thing we're talking about is not Klay, right? The first thing we're talking about is how can they get better by trading Chris Paul and however many picks it needs to which is what you're saying is what they're doing too.
Yeah, I mean, the time, I think the sequencing of this offseason is backwards for them from a like productivity standpoint. Like I think if they had it like literally the 4 dates that we've been talking about, if they had their choice, it would probably be like Klay Thompson's free agency settled first, Chris Paul's $30 million after that, then Peyton and Looney, and we'll deal with the guarantees later. It's really been the opposite, right? Peyton opts in, they have to make the Looney decision today. Well, they kind of need that money on the books. The Chris Paul thing's Friday, and then Klay doesn't even really enter, legal free agency until June 30th. And that's kind of created, I think, some tension. I'm sure you're going to ask me plenty about it, but yeah.
You had an article over the weekend and you kind of, you didn't allude to it. You wrote directly friction between Klay and the organization. And I wanted to ask you what friction you were actually referring to in that standpoint, because look, his body language has sucked for most of the year, mostly because he played poorly. Everyone knows he didn't want to come off the bench. Everyone knows he wanted a contract, but beyond that, not much insight.
Yeah, it's like nibbles of friction that's just built up over. I mean, you guys have been, locked in the last couple of years on the day-to-day. Sure. We're talking about role changes, benchings, not in closing lineups. I think one of the nights this season that got overlooked for obvious reasons was the game in Phoenix where Draymond, sideswipes Nurkic, and that obviously becomes the story of the game. That's the first night Klay got benched in crunch time for, I believe it was Podziemski and Kuminga, and then they started Podziemski and Kuminga the next game, and he benched Klay, Wiggins, and Looney all that night. That felt like a really like pivotal moment in the early season, and Klay like erupted on the bench. He was like hitting a cup rack over and like was like crazy, pissed, and he didn't initially take the benching well, and then accepted it and gave press conferences talking about like the Manu Ginobili acceptance. So it's small stuff like that. It's contractual money, finances, going obviously back to preseason, really back 2 years, right? He was extension eligible at the same time Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green were. Now, the Warriors usually operate in a way of like, hey, we won't extend you till we have to extend you. But I think they've taken a pretty cold-hearted business approach to Klay's situation really over the last 2 years, which is fine, but you're not dealing with like inanimate objects here. You're dealing with humans that are very different. You guys know who Klay Thompson is. You know
Sure.
What makes Klay Thompson tick, what makes him great, but also what like burns deep inside Klay Thompson. And as he has tried to grasp where his career is or isn't going, the way they've operated has not necessarily made him the happiest at times over the last couple of years.
Have they been? I mean, now I'm asking for your opinion because I don't feel like they've acted Warriors organization that badly. I don't think
it's a fair argument. I think it's a lot of it is the communication side of just like, we'll get to it when we get to it. We'll get to it when we get to it. Even right now, literally right now, like over the last month, over the last week, it's just like, we'll deal with you when we got to deal with you. And he's like, do you think Klay Thompson likes hearing that?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Yeah.
No one would like hearing that.
I mean,
no,
no one.
I totally.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a difference between the front office and let's just say the coaching staff and the players, or do you think that's more of kind of a unified thing? Because Steve Kerr will always be considerate when talking about Klay publicly. Obviously, it's one of his guys, someone who they've won a lot with, and in general, he has a good pulse on, who to push and who not to.
Yeah. I think if we're just talking about like finances and future and extensions, like we're talking about upper management here,
sure.
Obviously, the Lakers are very much involved in that. If we're talking about his relationship with Steve, which I do think is good in a lot of ways, and like, he talked about some pretty deep conversations him and Steve had at several points last year, but also like Steve benched him for a rookie last year. Like that's just a fact. He didn't close with him in key moments. There was the night in Brooklyn where Guy Santos is closing over him. And like, again, we watched like the blow by blow of that season. There was times where it was like, you might've been too late to do some of this stuff, Steve, but still like as Klay went through that, like remember, I mean, I know you guys remember the press conference where Kawakami, it was the first time he kind of pushed, like Klay was pushed on the idea of like, like maybe a bench, and like me, you want to bench me? Yes. That's how he feels, or that's how he felt. And it's just been a lot built up. And I know, look, to me, I think sometimes people forget, like Russell Westbrook's a good example of like what always made Russell Westbrook so great was like that just burning belief in himself, the competitiveness, whatever, but also, can be a fatal flaw, right? Draymond Green would be a pretty good example of what makes you so incredible at basketball at times can also be a downfall. Greatest strength, it can be a greatest weakness, right? I think Klay has some of that. I think the quote, remember the quote from Steve Kerr several years ago, like Klay's not low maintenance, he's no maintenance.
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case for years.
The injuries, both of them has been pretty painful for him, I'd imagine. I bet part of it is the front office saying, look, dude, we paid you $200 million plus while you were sitting around. Which is, you can argue both sides whether that's fair or not fair. I guess my question then would be, when the time comes, what is the offers that Klay's going to get? Because I was a couple months ago, asked Sam, arguing that Klay would get a big contract offer from someone willing to pay him like 2 years, $60 million. Does not seem like that's the case. Seems like
the market has been worse, and this is like league wide. You talk to a lot of people around the league. Like it's just worse for like all these veterans out there, and like the whole Bruce Brown, Fred VanVleet like precedent set last year with these smaller balloon payments. I think, from what I understand, that's kind of what Monk was likely looking at going into free agency.
Interesting.
And I think he kind of decided 4 for $78 is more appealing than like 2 for $52 or something, right? You're getting more per year, but would you guys rather sign a 2 for 50 something or a 4 for $78 with a player option on year 4 that you can get out of it?
He's young enough. He is young enough.
So to your point though, like, it's been a more lukewarm, the market is materializing in a much more lukewarm way for Klay. Now, that's not just like, yes, a lot of stuff obviously gets done behind the scenes before June 30th, but a lot of stuff also doesn't, right? Paul George is not decided right now. He's a massive domino where one way or the other, the way he goes means, cap space is open over here, isn't open over there. One team's desperate over there. Like there's still opportunity out there, I think, for Klay to get paid like a pretty good amount on, the outside, on the external market. But and this is what I've tried to convey in the article the other day. What I'm beginning to understand more and more is like, even if the market doesn't go his way, and even if it looks like, man, the Warriors, like they predicted this correctly and they can probably get Klay Thompson on a bargain, there is a pretty strong likelihood he just says, no, I'm not coming back. I don't want to come back.
That's pretty sad.
I think there is a chance that that's where it goes. Yeah. And that's what I think is surprising a lot of people, but it's just the reality.
So where's just prediction. What percentage chance do you think Klay's back? Just, not sourced, just guessing.
Look, I would have played the safer game of like the 50-50 like a week or two ago. I'm significantly lower now.
Wow.
And again, like, minds change, conversations happen. Money does talk at some point. If they're like, if the Warriors offseason goes in a way where they do feel like they have an extra amount of cash and they're like, they do come with these, hey, we love you, we do want you back, here's the money, whatever. Sorry that this went the way it did. Sure, it could happen. And Clay's the type of Klay has these like blow ups and then like comes into press conferences, like I said earlier, and like almost shows a very mature approach. They're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. You guys have watched it over the years. So he's clearly a guy who can kind of, the equilibrium can go various directions. So it would be dumb of me to say like, oh, 100% gone. But I'd be in like the 25-ish percent.
Wow. He's yeah, that is
I was leaning 40. Like I was leaning more that he was going to leave, but 25, that's even lower than I was at there.
I thought he'd be back for sure. Which then leads, watch this segue, Sam. Which then leads, does that 25%, is it that low because of the Paul George rumors? Is that deal done? Is Steph meeting with Paul George right now in LA? Is he?
If he is, there's probably, like 9 people lined up outside the door, right? I'm very curious where that goes. I don't have as much of like a pulse on that, like, the Clippers internal, what's going on there. My more outsidery read on that is like he'll probably end up going back there, right? I mean, it feels like the Clippers are staying pretty firm on him because their intel is like, man, he wants to be in LA, right? So maybe it's like the skeptical side, but I kind of think that's probably where it's going. But look, the Warriors are going to try to get in on that if they can, for sure.
I wonder if that's their number one. I wonder if that's I mean, obviously LeBron, but that's not happening, right? Like KD, but let's say those two are out, unless you tell me otherwise. It feels like Paul George is the guy. Like that's probably the number one guy that they feel is probably the most gettable.
Yeah, I mean, but half the league is in love with that idea right now.
Paul George would have to say, I need to be a Warrior.
Yeah, look, I'm curious where like the Jimmy Butler situation goes. I'm also like, there's smaller fish here that I think could help. Like, I really like the Kyle Kuzma contract. Now, I kind of think that's what the Kings should do. But I mean, like that's the type of smaller area, move, or like Brook Lopez from, I believe Jake Fisher's reported he's like available. That's like, they need a shooting big that can defend the rim, right? Him and Draymond, it's an older pairing. If people are going to go, look, like that's declining. And by next season, that might not look like a good pairing. And Brook Lopez, I think, is on an expiring deal. But like, it doesn't have to be the mega.
Are you buying though that this is going to be one of the more movement heavy off seasons among like impact players? Because
league wide, like the Warriors,
league wide.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough to read because I feel like
at this point it's always sold that, right?
Every transactional period at this point of the, like, you're talking to people around the league, like, it's going to get crazy this next week. It could get crazy, and like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there's going to be like big moves for sure that happen around the league, but also like as much intel that is leaked out there in several ways, and obviously I'm kind of like part of the machine that
sure.
Tries to drive this stuff. Also, just plops out of the sky. Like Giddy for Caruso was a pretty big shock. Chris Paul for Poole last year was like, he started to get a little bit of hints of that, like maybe a day or two in advance, but like that wasn't some new for, a month that was going down. So there's probably going to be some unpredictable stuff, but I wouldn't guess that this is like a, earth shattering player movement.
Fair. All right. So you're talking about the Warriors taking like a much more pragmatic approach with Klay. Is that more Dunleavy? Is that Lacob? Is that a unified thing? What I really kind of want to ask you is I'm trying to figure out how much power Dunleavy has in this front office. Like, he replaced Bob Myers 12 months ago, basically at this point. He's done one move that has been significant at that time. And that was, get rid of Jordan Poole for the Chris Paul contract. Not a lot to read on that front. Obviously he had a great draft as well. But yeah, getting back to that question.
Yeah, I think he's a very respected voice. Like Joe Lacob, like, I think, they'll sit together during playoff games, and I think there's a high level of respect for like Mike Dunleavy's basketball opinions and kind of scout's eye and relationship. He's not like, you wouldn't consider him quite like Bob Myers and the just like able to massage relationships and put out fires, but he's their guy to like, have difficult conversations right now, with Klay or, Klay's representatives or anybody in this situation. I mean, he's the one working the phone lines heavy right now. But yeah, I mean, like the Lakers, obviously Kirk and Joe, are, control a lot of the situation. And Joe, from a money perspective, like this is a money off season for the Warriors. Like,
sure.
Not only the second apron, obviously he's hinted at ducking the tax. I think there's, I think that's a higher priority than they want to publicly admit, understandably. But like, there's kind of fans wouldn't want to hear this, but I do kind of understand the idea of this kind of being the payroll reset summer. Especially if you don't think there's a move out there that's going to really get you in contention, like reset yourself. And look, Steph's aging, so I get it. They have a fading window, but if there's not anything out there that you're going to win the title, like they kind of do like this quartet of young guys, and
they're so fucked.
Yeah,
I'm just from I'm sure they do like them, but
but that might just be regardless. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's not like they're like, yeah, we want to be, screwed.
I think regardless they're fucked. Which is my point. Like in 4 years, I think they're screwed when Steph retires, and these 4 guys aren't good enough anyway.
Yeah,
they're going to win 32 games with those.
Part of why they're more screwed than it felt like they were a year ago is like the veterans got worse. Like even I don't think people like to hear this. I think Steph has a little bit of a level down of where he was, where you could consider maybe last year at this time, like, maybe, he's still top 3 in the league, like, definite 1A on a title team for sure. Like, I think you enter this season, like, I voted him 3rd team All NBA, which means like I thought he was a top 15 player this year, but you're talking 11 through 15. Now he could still like elevate to that level, and if built correctly, I do think you could still build a title team around him if the right move's out there, and maybe they should have a level of regret about the Pascal Siakam move. Again, the Kings right down the road from where I am right now, they were really in on Siakam, and they probably have a level of regret. Like, how would you guys feel right now if like not only was Siakam in the building, but he was on now like a 4, whatever the Pacers decided?
I mean, I don't know about that. I would have done it just because I think part of why Steph was not great was because he was just gassed.
Yeah,
like that's part of what he just played so many. And I know part of it is like he wants to make the All NBA teams because you got to now, but it's like he just was doing way too much, and he's lost a little bit, but he just can't carry like he did 4 years ago, right? So to me, it's more if they can just get better players around him, but if they feel the opposite way, and then on the other side, it's like they feel Kuminga and Potts. Like to me, it's like. And Slater, like my job isn't on the line, so it doesn't matter. I'm sure for them it's different. It's like Kuminga, get out of here, right? Put Pods, if you can get him in a trade for something, get first round pick, get that out of here. But again, right? Like I'm not. But Dunleavy's his job is to make sure that the team is still good. So I get that. It's just what are you guys really going to be with Kuminga and Pods your best players in 3 years? Like 36 wins, maybe.
Yeah, but I don't think you just like want to dispose assets because you're. Right. Mad that you can't be a top 4 team next season, because I don't think disposing them is going to get you to becoming a top 4 team necessarily. I don't know. We'll see what like what they are or aren't able to get done.
I think the Kuminga one's more interesting just because I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying, do you see how much money Scotty Barnes got today? And like, look, they're kind of rebuilding. He's also better than Kuminga. But they just gave him like $50 million a year, 200 something insane. And that's like a decision that the Warriors are going to have to make maybe this offseason. And at least in Toronto's case, like they can make that gamble. With the Warriors, you're looking at, you're like, I'm still not sure where I land on him as a player.
Yeah, we've been talking about it plenty. Me, Tim, and Marcus on our podcast lately, but like. the big question with Kuminga is the one that the head coach keeps raising publicly. In his press conferences, which is like, well, could really use him being a small forward, but he's not currently a small forward.
Yeah.
And
that creates really big positional and lineup problems for them from the puzzle piece standpoint, especially with Draymond Green on the roster, who has his own handcuffs that he can put on lineup choices. So, because in a like optimistic world for them, wouldn't Kuminga just slide into Wiggins' starting spot and you use the Wiggins salary to go get a Brook Lopez plus.
Yeah.
But then you're like, Kuminga's your starting 3, yet the head coach is like, well, we don't think he does stuff that
Steve's right.
Need to do.
Yeah, Steve's right. Yeah.
Whether Steve is right or wrong,
definitely right.
But whether he's right or wrong,
definitely right.
They just extended him. So it's like the entire mixed message of him, because if I listen to Steve's comments on him, he talks about him like more like he's Kelly Oubre than the future of the franchise. He's like, I'm still trying to figure out how to best use him. Obviously he has talent, blah, 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 but it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we'll see what happens over time. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like the Warriors are holding him up as he's kind of the future of the team.
But then they're also in trade talks with him, though, which is crazy. It's like he's,
I would say they're not like shopping Kuminga. Like, no, and they would publicly, they're only going to say like, we're protective of him. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like for the right player, we're talking. There's not that many players out there that they could get Kuminga from them. But yeah, the other thing is like he represents like that. Like dying like lottery chance that they had where they went Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, and like obviously Moody's still around too, but like Kuminga being like them having hit on Kuminga, I still think like is important to a lot of people in that building, particularly the guy that signs the checks. And like in some ways you're like, you know what, like Kuminga at 7, just like not looking at situation or whatever, like man, it looks like he's a good player. Like I think Jonathan Kuminga is a good basketball player that's heading towards being 100 million-ish type player in the league. Now, does he fit this particular situation? Yeah. Do they maybe miscalculate that? Like we could definitely have that argument, but I do think there's like a protectiveness on like
makes sense. Makes sense.
But that's like, by the way, this type of stuff's happening in front offices and all across the league. Like that's just what this league is.
Yeah. Look at Chicago. I guess maybe to go back to your first question about the Siakam one, I think that's a perfect way to kind of like, for me, say it is like, yeah, I'd rather just get Siakam than pay him that money. And yeah, you might not win a championship. They're probably only good enough to get to the second round. Honestly, maybe they'll get lucky and they'll make the finals the next 3 years. But I would have been good with that personally, because I was like, all right, at least you tried and you got someone that's good, versus now I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'll tell you right now, he ain't Jaylen Brown. And if he's going to be Jaylen Brown, you will be waiting 5 years for him to do that. And 5 years from now, I'm going to be hoping that they get the number 1 pick for whoever's coming out 5 years from now, whoever the Alex Sarr is 5 years from now, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
You better hope, if you want them to. I don't know that you want an Alex Sarr at 1.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know anything.
That's just a French Wiseman. No,
I haven't exactly been diving into tape on the high level draft picks this year.
It's never a good sign when no one can describe any of them with any sort of like confidence in any capacity.
Is not a real name either. I cannot believe that.
The fact that like Reed Shepherd might go like 3,
right?
Like, this guy's like a 6'2", like came off the bench at Kentucky. Like I don't know. Again, I'm not a draft expert. Maybe
he's absolutely not better than Pods.
But, there you go.
That's kind of the point. Pods might go second in this draft. It was redone this way. Couple questions in the chat I want to ask you, Slater, here.
Yeah.
All right. So the Paul George stuff has dominated the last 24 hours, mostly because he hasn't signed an extension. What else is out there other than Paul George? If the Warriors don't take a big swing, do you think we will hear Steph finally speak in any capacity? Ooh. That's the other aspect of it that, like, other stars would be applying more pressure to the Warriors front office, some more publicly. And to date, Steph's just kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah, I don't think he'll like rattle the tables, to be honest with you. We'll see. But He's in the loop on all these conversations. And that's the one thing Steph has said over the years when it's kind of presented publicly or privately. Like, I remember even at the trade deadline last year, he was like, I know more than you know about what we could and couldn't have done. I was in on the conversation.
So he said no to Siakam. We can blame him for the whole thing.
That's good.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I was talking earlier about like
Right.
you can almost find every superstar like their greatest strength is their greatest weakness. What makes them so great can all, at various times of their career also like negatively impact situations. And like, what would you say about like the diplomacy of Steph, right? Isn't he considered like one of the greatest leaders ever because of the way he just like, there's nobody who's ever come into that locker room and like had a truly bad word to say about him. Part of that is because he's not out there like, oh, I'm going to shop half my roster at midseason and I'm going to be part of like trying to get him out of town and him out of town. Like, okay. So then you can't then turn around and be like, why aren't you doing that? Well, part of why he isn't doing that is because like he wants to lead his locker room like he's always led his locker room next year.
Okay. 2 questions and then we'll get you out of here. All right. One from the chat asks, any idea who might replace Kenny Atkinson?
Oh,
yeah, I have a couple ideas. I'm not necessarily, it's aggregation season. I probably already said too much. You pinned me down on the 25% on Klay earlier, which I'm sure I'll see later somewhere. I have heard, and I mean, I'll feel comfortable saying this because I put it out there, but like even before Kenny, they've been looking at like former head coaches and maybe even former players, like a bigger name, bigger voice. Really since like Mike Brown left. Yeah. I think especially on the defensive end, maybe
Frank Vogel would really do wonders.
That's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, it really would be nice.
Yeah, I've heard a couple names that are pretty interesting. Obviously, I put out the Darvin Ham one a few weeks ago. He's in Milwaukee. That didn't happen. But they're looking and like they were really waiting on this Atkinson decision because they needed now. This I think clears the slate a little bit for them to restructure a lot. But from my understanding, like those conversations are going to heat up over the next couple of weeks. And I would think Steve Kerr would want to figure this out before Team USA really, really gets going.
He don't got to do much coaching for Team USA. Just get out the way.
You're right. There's like no egos at all. Like, nobody's going to be.
He's not going to be able to.
The 7th man on that team.
Their team is so weirdly constructed. I'm actually a little concerned. Maybe I'm concern trolling, but I'm just like, why is Embiid on this team?
I mean, it's one of those situations they might win the gold, but like that doesn't mean it was the happiest skipping path to get there.
You think KD's going to be happy on that? Yeah, maybe.
Last question for you. This is pure opinion, no aggregation, no sourcing. Yeah. What percentage chance do you put on the Warriors acquiring, let's just call it all-star caliber player from outside? So that I'm not saying LeBron. We'll count Kuzma. That's
is
like
Zach LaVine an all-star, Sam? Does that count?
He has been a 2-time all-star. Yeah. So I'm talking.
I mean, like, would you have considered Andrew Wiggins all-star caliber when they acquired him? Because if you didn't, he did check that box.
He did.
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you.
Are you calling this like the Kuzma line? Like Kuzma?
Yes, I'm saying a player who has accomplished as much as Kyle Kuzma or above in the NBA.
Like, will they succeed? Yeah, I think there's I don't know. I'm going to go like the safe, like 50-50 or something.
51, 50.1.
Yeah, I mean, I would, sure, 51 just for you. Like something like a Kuzma, I think. Kuzma's maybe. Really I mean, look, I think they're going to try to get it on the bigger conversations, but who do we think is going to be the biggest name on the move this offseason? And let's take Paul George off the table. Let's say Paul George goes back to the Clippers, like DeJounte Murray or Trae Young, who's probably going to get, it sounds like maybe one of them. Jimmy Butler is like, people are monitoring that. I don't know if that actually comes to fruition.
I'm not Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's another one. Levine, Mikal.
I wouldn't expect Brandon Ingram in a Warriors uniform. I mean, he's available. Levine, I'm hearing is like the contracts just like makes it almost impossible because they want to trade him for stuff, and people are like, no, we want stuff to take on that deal. It's like 3 for $137. And how many games did he play last year? Like
less than Wiggins.
15. So I think they'll make I do really sense that they want to shake it up a little bit. So I think that they will. Again, it may be in the eye of the beholder if you think that's an all-star level player or not.
Kuzma's really good. I don't know. I feel like I'm like no joke. You'd be a perfect role player for the Warriors. Like he at this point in his career, not like early in his career, like he wants to play defense, corner threes, like put him in a good situation. He'll make all the
to me, that's just like a great deal. It's declining. I mean, the Wizards did it purposely to make him appealing as his contract aged, but it's going down under 20 million by the final season.
So maybe they get Avdia. Maybe you can attach that. Throw some
maybe. I mean,
that's like everyone thinking they could get Alex Caruso thrown in on taking on whatever Bullets thing. It's not happening.
Caruso, you're correct. I would assume, but the Wizards are open for business, and that is important. Like a lot of times, like your trade partners matter. And the Wizards, I mean, the Warriors got into it with them last year. I mean, I think one of the appealing assets the Warriors could have with the Wizards is, hey, in that 2030 pick that's top 20 protected, let's just say it's now top 4 protected. Let's say it's unprotected. That's the non-Steph. I mean, that's dangerous because we're talking, but Andy don't care. Andy said you can put all the unprotected picks on the table. He's not going to be a fan come 2030.
I was going to say 7 years from now, 2 kids. I'm gone, man. I'm busy. I'm good. You guys enjoy that stuff.
I'm sure he won't be on the internet criticizing them at all in 2030 when they don't have their first rounder who's going to be, Wemby 2.0 coming out of France or something. And they don't.
2030, man, what is it? Oh, it's actually not that far away.
It really is not that far.
Actually, it's only 6 years. It's actually not that far away. I was thinking it's like 10 years away. Wow, they should do that. They absolutely should do that. I would do that. Get it done. Mike might not see the end of that. He might be gone by then, but
that's the other thing that happens a lot in the league. The motives for these front offices. People wonder why Chicago doesn't want these first round picks in 2028.
Yeah, you're not gonna be the one making the pick. Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works. Like, no, God, maybe Josh Giddey will be an all-star.
Slater, appreciate you so much hopping on.
Thank you, sir.
No problem, fellas. I'm sure I will not get aggregated on this at all.
Nobody listens to the show. You're good.
All right.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Oh, I fucking love Slater. I should do some reads. The Light Years podcast today's show with the great Anthony Slater. By the way, people love Anthony Slater. I think he's the most beloved Warriors reporter / voice right now. I don't think anyone has a bad thing to say about him, like they do about us. And they love Slater just as much as they love Andy and Sam. The Light Years podcast brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on two or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100x your cash. Prize Picks is the most fun I have had, winning up to 100x my money this basketball season. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. I made my first $10 deposit, received an instant $10, actually did $100, instant $100 match because Light Years promo code. If you have the skills, you can play for a shot at turning your 10 or 100 into 1,000. Prize Picks is also available in more than 30 states across the country: California, Texas, Georgia. Prize Picks also offers injury insurance so that your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players get injured this playoff season. If you have a player who exits in the first half and does not return in the second, Prize Picks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Download the app today. Use code LightYears for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today. Use code LightYears for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. All right, we are brought to you by Unified. Whether you are a world-class athlete or podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by the EE System, Energy Enhancement System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in the Bay or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/lightyears to learn more and find a center near you. That's unifidhealing.com/lightyears. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or sub for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider. Any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system.
Ooh, a lot of stuff there. By the way, if you want to get on the show, request. We'll bring a couple people on before we get out of here. What was your overall thoughts on Slater?
I was happy. I was happy with what he said. Honestly, nothing. The surprising part for me, Sam, personally, is the he thinks that they'll actually make a trade. He thinks it's more likely than not that they'll make a trade. Which I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. Which to me is a good thing. I think the Klay stuff will sort itself out, but I think it's a good thing that they're actually going out there and trying to make moves.
I agree with you. Look, man, it's going to be like a roller coaster the next 2 weeks. I'm sure at some point in the next 2 weeks, they're going to be like, they're not doing anything. I hate this team. I know you're going to get that text at some point. You might as well, when I send it, screenshot and say, it was coming. Throw it out on Twitter, whatever. But it does look, the team wants to make a move in some form. I'm not surprised about the Klay thing either, to be honest. I'm also not convinced.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it's the reality of the situation that they need to figure out if they can do something with the Chris Paul contract before they can deal with Klay. Period.
I did not really know that was that big. It makes sense when he was saying it like that. I'm with you though. Slater knows a lot more than I do. It just I'm a little more optimistic. I think cooler heads prevail when it comes down to it. If the Warriors come back with a contract offer that makes sense, I just think they're just going to grow. They're going to talk to each other and kind of come to a head, right? Like Steph's going to get in the room and it's just going to make more sense. And I still think Klay remains a Warrior. Higher percentage than you. I think it's like 70% for me. So
yeah, I just don't think June 24th is going to determine. So all right, we got our first caller. What's up, man?
Hello.
How's it going?
It's not too bad. Not too bad. Always good to hear you guys. I wanted to run a theory about you guys, specifically kind of about Klay. And do you guys remember that Steve Kerr press conference at the beginning of the year where he said he needed Klay to be a power forward?
Yeah. Who could forget that, right?
Maybe I'm nuts.
Hilarious in retrospect.
But that's what I'm saying. Like I interpreted that. I think that may have been actually kind of important, like in hindsight, right? Because I interpreted that as basically be Super Otto Porter Jr., right? Get 8 or 9 rebounds, guard bigs, like only take shots in the flow of the offense, which I know sounds like insane, but like if you think about it, I think the fact that Klay kind of didn't do any of that or even like try, I think that caused a bunch of downstream like lineup roster issues for them. I think that's why he went to the bench. I think they have way too many people on the team whose natural position is small forward. They're trying to cram Kuminga into the 4, even though he's clearly a 3, and because there's no shooting at the 4 or 5, right? They have to do that. Because of Draymond also, right? Like Moody doesn't play, etc. Like how much of the Klay 25% stuff in your guys' minds is downstream from the fact like this like small forward logjam problem that they have?
I don't know that it's a position thing. Sorry, Andy, I'll go first. But I do agree with you. It's a role thing. I like they wanted him to be Otto Porter. Maybe not in the get 8 or 9 rebound standpoint, but the take a step back, play smart and take open shots instead of try to be like a 25 point per game scorer. And to your point, like that's kind of the thing with Klay. Like I just don't think he was ready to accept that he's not a star anymore.
Yeah. Also, don't know if he can do it. Like that's just you mentioned the rebounds, but I think that's huge. That stuff is huge, though. He does need to get that rebounds. Also, Porter is Otto Porter is a smarter basketball player in terms of the floor game. Like he's a better passer. He's a better positional defender. He's a better rebounder, right? Like he knows how to play.
He was never as explosive as yeah. So I get where you're going with this.
And that's why I actually don't blame Klay for that, because now you're trying to pigeonhole. Now he mentioned, I forget his name. I didn't see his name, but he also mentioned Kuminga as a 3. I disagree. Like Kuminga's a 4. I agree with Steve Kerr. Like he's a 4 because he can't create his own shot. He can't shoot. And like that, he just
but physically he's a 3,
right.
Which I think his point is all these dudes,
right.
if it was a perfect world, would play a 3. And that's not a perfect world. Kuminga doesn't have the ball handling skills and shooting ability to be a 3, you know?
Yeah. And he can't defend ones or two. Like that's the other thing, right? Like he actually can't defend at all. But it's just like that's the other thing. You have to do that. So I mean, none of these guys can defend. So it goes back to the other thing. Kyle Kuzma can defend. So maybe though.
I actually don't feel bad about Kuminga's on-ball defense. It's every other aspect of defense. So when they ask him to make rotations and play off the weak side and be the low man, I'm just like, he needs to stick to his man and figure that out first. So
his on-ball defense got worse from year 1 to year 3, which to me tells me that he can actually defend. He just doesn't want to because he's more focused on scoring 20 points a game. Like it's yes, he can defend, but I don't think he cares right now.
Yeah, maybe, or dudes. Yeah, focus. I would agree with. Yeah, you start taking a bigger role in offense and then you stop defending.
Makes sense. I mean, except like it's the problem is you better be Luka on offense. You know, that's how good Luka is.
It's a process. I'm not as pessimistic.
I'm not waiting. What do we got? Ebony. There we go.
Hello. Okay, so in Kuminga's defense, they didn't have anybody else to shoot the ball. So is it a big shock that, his defense did decline in that time period? Like, I don't know. It's interesting to look at players that are new to the league and what they're good at when they get there versus after like 3 or 4 years. And it's like, okay, what are they being asked to do? And seeing like that decline is so interesting because it's like you're looking at the roster and it's like, well, everyone else has a role and the rookie's trying to figure it out. And so I think his skill set's going to fluctuate until Steph retires, truthfully. So, anyways, I was just looking at the full list of like free agents. And it's just when you look at them, right, and what the Warriors need, a backup ball handler, probably because Chris Paul needs to leave, and then a big dude, right? But all these dudes, like, they kind of, like, their skill set only makes sense if another thing happens to the roster.
Correct.
So, like, you're looking at, like, Nick Claxton and Jonas Valanciunas, and they make sense, but if Klay stays, if that doesn't, that is what I'm saying, makes sense. So it's like,
or if they make like, we'll use the Paul George trade.
Yes, I was just gonna do it.
But yeah, it's like I agree with you. I think the free agency market is like it's a bunch of mid-level guys who like, okay, do you need like a center who can defend but not score, or do you need a point of attack defender, or do you need a 3-point? Like they're all kind of like limited role players in some capacity.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's one of those things where you need to figure out who you're getting first, and then you go out and get it. Because like if you get Paul George, I can justify Jonas Valanciunas because you need a big just to eat minutes, right?
Yeah.
You need that sort of thing. But if you make a trade for, I don't know, this isn't a star, but like Brook Lopez, you most certainly don't need to get Jonas Valanciunas, right? Like, so it's like figure one thing out before the other.
Right. But I think it's more like, does Klay stay or leave? And if he does, do we go get like Isaiah Joe instead of, like a
Isaiah Joe's nice.
I'm just saying he killed the Warriors from 3, or he's just one of those dudes who like showed up when it was the Warriors. But I just feel like
he murdered him on the same play Klay murders everyone for like a decade. But yes,
exactly. I think
it was very frustrating to watch them run the same fucking play on repeat against the Warriors. Like, hey, he's gonna screen, then he's gonna pop, and you're not gonna switch, and he's gonna hit it every time.
The Warriors don't make any changes to address it. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best.
Watching Wiggins and Kuminga miscommunicate on that switch 3 possessions in a row, I was
do not bring that back. I'm kidding. you just pissed me off.
That game bothered me. OKC bothers me more than most teams because They play basketball like Madden. They're like, oh, they can't guard this. Same play, over and over again. Which, yeah. Anyway, that's different.
Nothing makes me angrier than like the defense. I think it's and guys that dribble too much. So yeah,
then we signed Pat Bev at the very bare minimum.
I love Pat Bev.
I feel like it'd be hilarious. It'd be true cinema. Like Draymond and Pat Bev on the same team. I mean, I think Pat Bev is kind of cooked, but
yeah,
he might be
good
it'd
energy.
Still be entertainment.
Good energy, right? It's just good. The team, I think it felt like had so little energy for a lot of it, and I don't know. It'd be nice to have them there, just pissing people off and diving into people's knees.
Well,
flopping.
My last point, I feel like there's a lot in free agency in general. Like there's just so much to choose from that could make sense on the Warriors, which is interesting. Like Alex Len from Sacramento, if they don't pick him back up, like he was kind of a dude when they were good 2 years ago. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Just kind of wide range of options that, the Warriors could look at depending on what happens with Klay. So
Alex Len and Jonas, white big men.
Appreciate you. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't hate the idea of like Jonas and Trace, two different styles.
I love it.
They
need more big man depth, right?
Not my top priority, but I've seen them without a big. They need something. So
they need Pat Bev, Draymond, Paul George, all-star podcast from the comments.
That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Will, what's up, man?
Yo, Andy Sam, what's up, guys? Long time no speak. Man, so it's been a minute, but Andy, I'm right there with you. I feel like we're on the same page when it comes to this whole Klay situation. Like, dude, I'm fucking over it. Like, bro, like they paid you all this money while you were injured for like 2 years, and I get it. You were robbed of your prime, and that sucks, but you bet on yourself because they offered you $25 million this past offseason. You bet on yourself, and the last thing we all saw of you was you going 0 for 10 in a gotta have it playing game. So, and from the reports and everything that we're seeing, it's looking like the market is not going to be what he thinks it is. I think what would be great, I don't think he would do this, especially if he's maybe, the relationship with the Warriors front office is kind of like degraded at this point. Do a little sign and trade with Orlando, especially because it's Florida. You'll keep more of your money there, nice little oceanside spot for Rocco, take the boat over there. You still be by the ocean. Do a little sign and trade. We get maybe one of their bigs like Jonathan Isaac or Wendell, whoever they want to move off of, because I don't think they could pay all of those guys. And then
Can they do that? I don't even know if they can do that.
I don't know.
They can.
Okay,
but it's idealistic because Orlando can pay him without having to execute a trade.
Exactly. But the only incentive to that would be if he just wants to get as much of his money as possible, like, going to a tax-free state like that, he can get the most out of whatever they would offer him in a sign and trade situation. The last thing I wanted to say, because we've all been hearing about it the past couple of days about Paul George, the money that it would cost to get him, wouldn't that essentially then, once that money is on the books, that would kind of like we'd be stuck money-wise and not really be able to have a bench. Like we'd have a pretty good starting lineup, a really great starting lineup, but then our bench would be cooked. We'd have essentially no bench, because how would you pay for that?
You'd have to be smart about it, but I don't know. It's 2 huge contracts. It's Draymond's contract. It really depends on, are you keeping Wiggins' contract? I'm assuming you're not. Just do the math in your head. Okay. The tax line is 190. So 100 of it would end up going to Steph and Paul George. 20 of it would end up 25 of it would end up going to Draymond. That still leaves you a little money. Like if you're smart about it, you can definitely fill out your bench. But to your point, it is a little harder. But the flip side of it is most good teams have 2 dudes who make a ton of money, couple dudes who make pretty damn good money, and a bunch of dudes who make like okay money, but they're smart with it.
The question is, are they keeping Kuminga, Moody? Which one of Kuminga, Moody, and Wiggins are they keeping? Or are all three guys gone?
Because in my opinion, I would keep in that situation, I'd keep Wiggins and I'm getting rid of Kuminga. Because my God, like first of all, like you were just talking about, on-ball defense, decent. Off-ball defense, just my eyes burn every time I watch him play off-ball.
I would say Moody would be the one who I'd want to keep the most in that situation, because at that point you need role players more than anything, and he just give him a chance. He's gonna dive for every rebound. He's gonna hit some open shots. He's not gonna try to dribble over the place like he's the man. But like you see, we'll see.
That's the thing, right? Because I don't think you can make that trade without including Chris Paul and Wiggins in terms of contracts, right? So then because then I would rather keep Wiggins because then now you really have but again, just contract perspective, I don't think they can make that happen. So either way, I mean, Sam's right though. Like if you can just get Steph, Draymond, and Paul George, you just start there.
And the thing with Kuminga in particular, why like maybe moving off of him and trying to get some assets like picks wise, and then seeing what else you could do, is because I know I don't think he's the same player as like Scotty Barnes, but we just saw what Scotty Barnes just got, and in his mind, in his agent's mind, I'm sure they're like, well, if I played the minutes or whatnot that he was, I should be getting paid like somewhere in that ballpark, and there's no way that we'd be able to afford that.
I agree with that. I very much agree with that.
Appreciate you, Will. Have a great evening, my man. I think I kicked Andy off stage. Yeah, it's my bad.
I was gonna say, what happened to me?
I don't think I just ended the I think we had a little tech error there, but a couple people are still asking, come on. So if you're requesting, press it again. I saw a couple names that we didn't get to. I apologize.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
What's up, Gio?
Give us a little good vibes. Come on.
It is all good vibes. Like
yeah.
At least I'm hearing attempts at doing something. Dude, I honestly hope they get Paul George, because like this whole teasing thing for the last couple of months, like I need this in my face. I need Paul George on this team. I need something different, bro. Like I think. Like I honestly, if that doesn't happen, bro, like I'll be depressed for the whole entire next season, bro. Like I don't know, bro.
I'm gonna be so upset if we wake up tomorrow to a Woj Bob of Paul George has re-signed with the Clippers.
Oh my god, that would be depressing.
It's one thing if someone has a better trade offer. No worries. If this just ends up in a huge tease to him going back, I'll just be like, although I can't like really blame him. But I'll be personally like, God damn it! I got my hopes up for nothing.
Like, why is Ballmer like penny pinching? Like, he's like $60 billion, like $100 billion rich. Like, what's the point here? Like, and
I mean, they haven't won anything.
They signed Kawhi, who doesn't play basketball. For, like, he's giving max.
Well, I wouldn't have done that either.
Difference?
I understand the incentive to. Look, man, 5 years. 5 years. I gave you everything. I bought you guys houses illegally. I got you private planes. I did everything, and you couldn't even get to the finals once. I'm ready to move in a different direction.
Fucking embarrassing.
At least in the Warriors situation, the Klay thing, it's like, look, man, he has actually won a lot of shit with you, and it is a little more complicated. These dudes have done nothing. At a certain point, you just want to switch it up. So.
Yeah, honestly, like what would you give up for like Paul George? Like realistically, like me, I'm all in. Give me JK, put Wiggins in, like just move.
So Wiggins and Chris Paul are going to be involved just to make the money work. Like there's just not really another way. So those two. I mean, I know you're not going to cry about Chris Paul. I'd throw in Kuminga. I'd be happy to give up a pick. I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. I think you still get to keep Moody, who helps your depth. You get to keep Pods, who helps your depth. You have Trace, who helps your depth. So you're like, your roster's not.
Yeah, if that's the case, man, they need Klay back.
You're like halfway to building an 8-man rotation. Is my point.
But they need Klay back if they get Klay needs to resign. I think.
Oh, I kind of feel
resign. I think it's all cooks. Like PG is just like, he's always hurt anyways. Like I think you need Klay on this roster. If
played 76 games last year.
I mean,
I think
like
they need Klay.
year.
I actually agree. I actually think I'm frustrated with the Klay stuff, but I actually think they need him back. The thing for me is like what Slater was saying is they need him back and they need something else. So the fact that they have to, but the fact that Klay doesn't understand that, and I get it. That's what Slater kept trying to tell. Like it because he's this way, he doesn't get it. But it's like, listen, Klay, like they're gonna have to figure out this stuff first, and then get to you and offer you what's available, so that they can try to get PG and Klay, right, or whatever and Klay, right? But he wants and it's just like, look, man, you guys just aren't good enough. But again,
like, what's the timeline here? Like, so July 30th, Klay is what, a free agent? Like, what needs to happen before then?
Gio, we gotta move on. But like Paul George's option date's the 29th. So we will know before free agency whether he's going to be moved in a trade, re-sign, or outright hit free agency. So that will be resolved by, I think that's Saturday. But one way or another, it'll be resolved prior to us getting there. So I actually don't think, I don't know. I think Klay, Paul George, Steph, and Draymond's too slow, but
probably. But I'm down. That'd make me very happy.
But I also don't know if there's a route for them to like flip Draymond for a 28-year-old who is the like correct fitting role player. Like, I don't know. Sure, on paper it sounds great, but that's like probably not happening.
Draymond's too good defensively for you.
I wasn't saying Draymond. I was saying Klay. In that mix, like I'd want in a perfect world, I'd want Steph, Paul George, and Draymond surrounded by dudes who are somewhere between 25 and 30 with legs. Yeah. But like, I don't know if you can, I don't know if that's a realistic thing. Luke, what's up, man?
I'm just glad you're not pissed off today, man. You're not getting triggered by anyone. It's good to see.
I'm always in a good mood. I'm never mad.
I'm in a great mood.
My only complaint about the Slater interview was, why don't we get me to a fucking table read or something? I love his table reads on The Athletic. They're outstanding. Something. Your balls feel secure. Something. Just something in the Slater voice. Just something like that. I mean,
I'll make sure to pass on the notes.
His voice is dead set. I think he should be a GPS guy. He's dead set outstanding. The only thing I'm going to say, I think even more, because he plays his cards pretty close to his chest, old Slater. I honestly think what you two said before, I would be shocked now if something doesn't happen. Because it feels like he was pretty coy then, and I'm sure he's probably told you guys behind the curtain. I think something is going to happen. The question is whether it's the one we want to happen. Because I think like you guys said, I think Paul George is a no-brainer, and I also think too, if Steph's not fucking over playing golf with him in LA somewhere, this place is fucked. So because we haven't heard from Joe Lacob, so obviously Steph's got to do his work for him. So hopefully Steph's on the phone to old PG. But even that, I just think I'm of the opinion as well. I think Klay's got to be back somehow as well, but it sounds like he's pissed off. But also, I don't know how much of that's just glazing and, you know, him putting on a bit of a show. I'm basically talking to the Andre Iguodala school of fucking playing with everyone too, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but the only thing I was going to ask with Slater, I was working, so I couldn't hear, but what's the timeline with all this? Like, when do we think this is all going to kind of wrap up?
Okay, here's the timeline. Paul George is unique. His contract opt-in date is the 29th. So if he is going to get traded, he needs to opt into that contract by the 29th. So we'll have an idea in the next 5 days whether that's happening or not.
All right. So, yeah, cool. So
then free agency actually starts the 30th. So my assumption is movement. We're going to start seeing real movement. Let's call it the 28th. Let's say somewhere between the 27th and the 30th, speculation is going to turn into transactions. Whether it's small ones that lead to bigger ones at the beginning of July or the other way around, that tends to be how it goes. But you know these things go. we could wake up to a big move tomorrow, and next thing you know, everyone's like, "Yeah, move now, gotta move."
Well,
now.
the Chris Paul one is also another one too, right? Because they can push back Chris Paul's guarantee date,
but he has to agree to it.
But he has to agree to it, correct?
Well, I've got your two notifications on, so I'm gonna know, right? Because obviously I'm in Australia. So if I see lots of fucking Fitz memes off Sam straight away at 3 a.m. in the morning, that means we're royally fucked. And if I see a lot of fucking baseball from you, Andy, that means we're royally fucked. So I better see a lot of absolute levels of glazing if we get something. So I need to pop off straight away. So
I was texting Sam this morning. I was like, this is an elite content week because we are either going to get probably the happiest Warriors week we've had in a very fucking long time, or I'm done.
I want to see. Yeah, the only positive for me if we don't do fucking anything, I want to see Sith Lord Sam this time next week because I want to see some absolute dark cloak over his head, mate. I want to see some dark stuff, but hopefully, I think we're going to be all right. But yeah, let's fucking hope so. But
Sith
yeah,
Lord Sam, that's
chin up, boys. I hope we get some fucking things home. All right,
appreciate you as always, Luke.
Sith Lord Sam. Do we know who the Sith Lord is? Do you watch the Acolyte? You don't watch Acolyte. You don't watch Star Wars. No. Comments will tell me. All right. Who do we got?
Paratosh, what's up, brother?
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good. It's been a minute. It's on the East Coast, so I usually don't stay up until now. But I don't know. I felt like that Slater interview was... Maybe I'm just being more negative, but it seemed like the Warriors are in a wait and watch state where they're like, let's see if something turns up, we might do something. But also, it seems like Steph is not really like uber bent on getting that second star, which will put us in contention.
We don't know that. I don't know.
I mean, Slater, if you read between the lines of what Slater said, it's not like he's phoning Mike Dunleavy like LeBron would, for example. So what I was driving at is, do you think that where does the intent lie with the front office, the core, and Joe Lacob? Does it lie that they absolutely want to get a second star to contend? Or is it more like if something happens, it happens. Otherwise, we'll just ride this thing into the sunset, especially because Steph is going to play the Olympics as well. So who knows, maybe after the gold, or he's already feeling like he's done everything in basketball. So like it could just be that he wants to ride with his guys into the sunset, which is why Steve Kerr might have also been re-signed because he wants to play just for Steve Kerr and nobody else.
I'll take this one. I think yeah, we gotta go. I think they'll they're trying. I think they're trying to get that second star. I think the one thing that's concerning probably is that they don't care about the they don't care about the mid-level star. So like how Slater was talking about like Kyle Kuzma and stuff. I think they're probably rather have like Moses Moody than like a Kyle Kuzma or like definitely a Kuminga than a Kuzma. But like I don't think they're willing to trade any of those guys for like a mid-level guy. Which I think is the point.
They'll trade Wiggins for Kuzma.
That's more of a contract thing, I'd imagine, because they have 3 more years of him. But
when Wiggins gets traded and the leak comes out about how much they hate him, it's going to be the greatest.
I don't think that's going to come out.
Oh, it's coming out.
I don't think it'll come
He
out.
wasn't available enough. Oh, okay.
The Warriors don't do that.
Oh, they will.
Did they do that with D'Lo? They really hated D'Lo, though. That was like real hate. I was like, that's they were a little aggressive with that one.
Josh, what's up?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's going on?
I think we're all forgetting that we don't view ourselves as a basketball organization. It's deeper than that. But in all seriousness, I mean, I think the one move that could kind of cover all the bases would be making a move for Laurie. It doesn't seem like Utah is very animated to do that. I think you could trade for PG, but you're going to end up needing more shooting. I just don't know what Steph, PG, Wiggins, Draymond, and Trace, like that spacing, I don't think is any better than what we saw this past year. So,
appreciate you, Josh. I will say Paul George is one of the best shooters in the NBA, not named Steph or Klay. like 40% on like 9 threes a game for a decade. So, but I do agree that's still just kind of one shooter. So
I think, Paul George is what is he? He's as old as the rest of the Warriors, bigger guys. So
they may just Klay. Yeah.
Older, right? So I don't think there's much left to be squeezed there. But I do think there's, what is it about the small forwards that play next to Steph, right? We've seen it. Harrison Barnes, Kevin Durant, Andrew Wiggins, and you hope Paul George is like, I think he'll be better. He'll just be a lot better than he's been in his career next to Steph. He's on that ranking list. Obviously, he's number 2, right? It's KD, PG in terms of talent and stuff. So, he's
and production.
And production, all of that, right? So you're not asking him to be the alpha. That's not who PG is. He knows that. So,
All right, we're gonna leave it here. Appreciate everyone who called in. We'll be back.
Peace.
A lot of free agency stuff to get to.
No cap. All right.